Welcome to the season 1 wrap-up, everyone. You made it. We're here. Thank you for joining us. We've all been pre-gaming because we drink when we do these things. So if we're a little more boisterous than normal, impossible, but you know why. Thank you for coming. Yeah, we're basically just... I think as we've gone through, this has been a pretty wild season, to be quite honest. We've had some really great first chapters submitted. We've had some really god-awful books that we've had to read. And I don't think it was quite what any of us really expected. So I was like, you know what? We really should be doing wrap-ups for each of these seasons anyway, so we can get some of our thoughts out. We're going to cover actually some of the ways that we would fix the books. Each of us have picked a different book, and we're going to cover what we would do to adjust them within the scope of how the author actually laid them out. So definitely join us for that. But yeah, we're going to give some of our impressions about how the season went, what our expectations were at the start, how things evolved for us personally as we were going through, and we're just going to have a great time. So, thank you for joining us at the, Menage a Typo season wrap-up. So,
and to kick us off, that's Sarah. She's a longtime writer with her bachelor's in English.
Shut up!
She's currently unpublished, but she will be launching her first book
don't
of her
have
dark
to
fantasy
introduce
series
ourselves
as
for the
soon as
wrap-up.
she's out of editing hell. I'm Jack.
We didn't introduce ourselves for the other ones.
We don't have to introduce ourselves for these ones. Chaos monsters.
A longtime writer and developmental editor with a bachelor's in neuroscience. My debut novel is Where the Lightning Goes, which you can find a link to below. It's important because maybe someone stumbles upon this randomly.
If you stumbled upon us randomly, please don't listen to this first. Go to any of our other videos and listen to them first instead. Thank you.
Jess, I need you to write down whatever your intro is so that I can randomly read off yours as well.
I know.
Okay. I don't have a solid one yet.
I know it. And I'm Jess. I've been on a hiatus for a little while, but I'm hoping that by doing this podcast and engaging with writing in other ways, that I can get back into it. And spoiler alert, I think that our Jess deserves some congratulations because that is exactly what is happening right now. We're working.
There's so much red in here.
But you know what?
There's
We're
so
working
much.
through it. And that's the important thing. We're back into the writing.
I'm excited.
I've been waiting for this wrap up for so long, guys. You have no idea.
I was thinking about maybe for season 2, I will have a better intro where I actually include, because you guys are like, I have this education. And I'm like, you know what? I currently have 3 bachelor's degrees and I never mention any of them.
My education is I got my bachelor's in English and then I went into IT and I never used it again.
My education is that I got my bachelor's in neuroscience and then went into English and never used it again.
I mean, you kind of use it. Like, I know
I
that's
use
like
it
what you learn
constantly,
in college for.
Just for
Yeah.
writing
And
also
then Jess,
analyzing
I
everyone
got
and
3
everything.
bachelor's degrees and I use them all constantly.
I have elementary education, and I have Korean language, and I have software development. They don't mesh together well, but they work well with my interests and what I'm doing and stuff.
And with that said, Sarah, start our wrap up. What book would you like to fix?
Wait. You're acting like that's the first thing we talk about.
We have to have an
That's
actual
my favorite
wrap-up.
thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. Editing is the best. Fine, do what you want.
The first thing we talk about is what were your expectations whenever we started this season? And how did those change as the season progressed?
Oh my God. My expectation was I was promised that we would have really fun, good indie books. Maybe promise is strong, but like I was under the impression that we would have some really nice, good indie books to read.
I thought there would be. I'm sorry.
I'm so sad about it though, because
Me too.
it really sucks as a first season to not have a single good one.
We will have a good one next season, for sure. For sure.
Stay tuned.
If any of you ever, for whatever reason, decide to get in contact with me to go over your books or brainstorming or whatever it is that you would get in contact with me for on a professional level, you will find that what I say about all of these indie books that we've gone over is what I say about most books until they're at a fantastical level of wonderfulness, in which case I'm very happy to just talk about the things that I loved. But this season went largely as I expected, because unless it gets to the point of being The Arsonist, where it's just constant contradictions of the story not even being itself. I still don't know what happened in that story because of how much it contradicted itself. I don't know what's true. I don't know what actually took place in that plot. Unless you get to that point, I feel largely the same about every book that we read, aside from personal prejudices against There Will Be Thousands, but on a writing level, same as all the others, as I do majority of the nonfiction and fiction that I read that are traditionally published and indie published. This was just a day in the reading for me. It went as expected, except it was more fun to talk to Jess and Sarah about them, and I didn't DNF, as I most often do within a few paragraphs, lucky if you get to pages, when the writing is like this.
See, my naive, sweet self I am, and I am naive and sweet.
No one said otherwise. So defensive.
You said otherwise, with your eyes.
I said it with my heart.
I heard that too. I had some hope because I expected things to be at least unique. I expected at least some unique executions of books.
Maybe that's the issue, is that you guys had hopes, or you had thoughts that, like, the traditional publishing was good, and so these would ideally be up with that, whereas I think traditional publishing is also bad, and so it's all just in a cesspool, and that's fine. We just picked things out of the cesspool, and that's
all right, but there's a difference. The traditionally published books that I have read and enjoyed I was at least hoping that one of these would be at least on the level of some of the books that I have enjoyed but didn't really make a tier list that were traditionally published.
That's fair.
That, like, I don't really super remember later, but I didn't have any complaints while reading it.
Yeah. I always have complaints, so I don't have one of those lists.
I think my issue is fair, okay? And you guys, just so everyone knows, please don't hate on the editing too much because I do it all myself and I'm a very bad editor. I apologize.
You're a great editor. We love you.
You don't even know that. Yeah, I'm a really
and also
bad
a very
editor.
Good video editor. But those are different skills, so you can't
They're very different skills.
I'm going to
apologize for that right now. I'm not a very good video editor yet. I am learning. It just takes so much time, guys. But the thing is, as I've gone through all of our recordings to date, the one thing I consistently harp on is that I really wish people had distinct voices in their writing, and we didn't come across a distinct voice in any of these.
That's true.
And that, honestly, yeah, that's the disappointment for me. Because honestly, I can get over so much shit. I'll tell you guys, it was the funniest thing I think I've ever read in my life. It was like a short novella length maybe thing, and it was just so off the wall corny. And I loved it. I told him, I was like, don't change anything, because if you change anything, you're going to have to change the entire thing. Like, the entire thing will fall apart if you try to fix even one thing. So just fix your typos and then you're done. Because it was like the zaniest shrooms adventure you'd ever come across in your life. And I enjoyed reading it. You know how hard it is to enjoy reading something anymore? Because nothing is unique. Everything is either trying too hard to be something else, or it's this weird amalgamation voice. And I didn't realize I was so sensitive to voice until, like I said, I was going through the recordings. But that is my number one gripe, is that nobody has an authorial voice anymore. They're just this like blanket amalgamation thing out there that isn't unique to them at all. Like literally anyone could write their books and probably write them better. And that was disheartening. That was really disheartening, because I did actually start the season with very high hopes that we would come across something that was really good. Just like whenever I first started getting a couple of indie books, because that's what I'm told. Everybody's like, oh, these are great. These are the next wave of publishing. These are like the thing that's going to be like the best thing in literature forever. And nobody delivers on that. And it pisses me off personally.
So, something to note is that I am not discouraged by this season. Again, because traditional publishing is also garbage, but mostly because I don't go off of any bestseller list or any this is popular right now or blah, 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 award, blah. I walk into a used bookstore, ideally one of the ones that has books stacked everywhere to the point that you're kind of thinking that romance starts here, but maybe it's still philosophy. And I pick out what looks interesting. And then I read that. And so I know that lots and lots of books are bad. And then every once in a while you get something that you love that sticks with you. And I know we're going to come across one of those. And so this is just going through a bookstore, but it takes longer.
That's fair.
We're going to get something good.
Because whatever you pick up, you have to read. Instead of being like reading a page and being like, that's not for me, and putting it down and moving to the next.
Yes. So far in our Russian roulette, we have gotten bullets every time. But one of these times... we'll get an empty chamber. 5 out of 6 are bullets.
Somebody loaded this gun with mostly bullets instead of only one bullet.
Correct.
No, it's all bullets. The entire thing was bullets this season. We didn't even have an empty chamber.
But something worth noting is that this will sound silly, my biggest gripe for books is that there's a lack of whimsy. There's a lack of fun. It might be interesting to read. It might have cool world building. It might have good characters, but it's not fun. We will find a book, well written or not, that is fun some point down the line. I can't promise anything for Sarah. I can't promise anything for Jess, but eventually we'll get something fun. And that's all I'm looking for. And so I am still encouraged to keep going, because at least we're reading, at least we're analyzing, at least we're talking to each other after moving states and states and states apart. This is fun. What's your biggest gripe, Jess?
Wait a second. Before we move on.
That's not moving on.
If it is moving on from your point, if you are a good writer and you think you have a strong voice and you do engage in whimsy, please send us your manuscript. We would love to see it.
Or any of those 3 things.
Especially if you need a developmental edit, because we have at least 2 developmental editors who are very strong in that. And Jess, what would you describe yourself as?
I mean, I think I could do fine at developmental editing. I just don't have a lot of practice at it, is all. Like, you guys have practice. I have gone to writing groups and done online writing exchanges, and
yeah, Jess undersells herself is what it is.
Jess is good with developmental things. I would currently call her a really good line editor, because she's good at picking out what things don't make sense as like within the flow of your own voice, which I could never do. But she does developmental well too.
Yes. So you have the opportunity to submit to a panel of very experienced and very good developmental editors who can help you make your manuscript better for free if you want to submit to our Book Medium channel, because we didn't have anything for that this season. That is a full manuscript review. We will go over it in detail. So, I know some people are really worried about spoilers and everything. You shouldn't be worried about spoilers because your writing should stand on its own. But if you want to, you can submit your manuscript for a free developmental edit to the Book Medium, and we will get that returned to you with an editorial letter sharing what needs to be done.
What we recommend to be done.
Yes, what we recommend to be done. as far as the high level changes. So that's my plug. That's why we were moving on.
But also, whatever Jess's gripe is and whatever she would love to see, let's retroactively add that to Sarah's list, because we would also invite you to submit whatever Jess wants and not just whatever
Correct.
Sarah and I want.
And that's a good reason to keep reading. Or that's a good reason to keep listening.
That's a lot of rum is what that is. Jess, your turn.
That's a lot of rum.
I'm about to switch to sake.
God, there was you both know that I am really big on world building.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to a large extent, it's because I want things to make sense, and I want them to make sense with the world. And I think it's really magical when the story fits into the world in a way that you can see why they go together, why that story is happening in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And so things like, in Eyes Wide Shut, when there was not really any care taken to make why the haunting was happening, or like what the actual rules of it were, really bugged me. I want internal consistency in the story, and I want for things to make sense in a way that's like rewarding, like has a payoff throughout the story.
In an incredibly unfortunate turn of events, the Black Crown had the most world building. And I wish that weren't the case.
But it wasn't consistent.
It wasn't.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't consistent.
It wasn't good
It wasn't
world
great.
building. It was a lot of world building.
The only thing I genuinely liked from the Black Crown was the dragons, the veins going through the cave that were like the dragon's fire. That
That's
if you touched them,
true.
like it could sense you. That was the only thing that I liked. Everything else, I was like,
Everything about that book was shit. I have a rant on that later because my little brother is still melting down about it. He still texts me randomly and is like, I hated it. I hated the cover so much I still think about it. Just randomly. Like, it hasn't been since early December. This is like several months now. And he still just randomly thinks of the cover, and it's just hatred. So,
I think we'd get along if I ever met him.
yeah, probably.
I'm only just realizing that I've never met him because I met someone else's younger brother from college, and I think I overlaid your younger brother, but I don't think they're the same person. So,
No, they're not.
yeah, I just blended them together because I've also been to your parties, and you have lots of people there that I don't talk to, so, oh well, it doesn't matter.
I have great parties. Not anymore, because I live in Florida now. All I party with is crabs.
There are a lot of jokes to be made there that we're not going to make. And moving on, why don't we run through some of the books? Thoughts, not our what we said in the videos thoughts. So we start off with the third test, which Jess did not read. Lucky girl.
That was when you were Menage a duo.
Wow. To be fair, though, it was not great, but it was inoffensive. That was probably one of the most milquetoast things we read this.
Actually, the third test hit the same note of making me want to die as The Arsonist, because there is something about the bland writing that just makes me want to go to bed.
That's true.
And so I open the book, and then I want to go to bed, and then the thought of opening the book and I want to go to bed, and I did my taxes instead of reading The Arsonist. That's the level of procrastination I had.
Oh, I need to do my taxes.
You're very productive.
I was so productive. I ran out of productive things to do. I was so productive. But that, for what, it's the blandness. It's the nothing is happening. No matter what you do, no matter how many chapters you read, the plot doesn't move forward. Just events occur, and maybe they link together, and maybe they don't, and no one is interesting, and nothing matters. And I just want to go to bed. And the third test hit the same note for me as The Arsonist, regardless of the level of lack of editing that was in one and not the other.
But the third test was worse that way. At least The Arsonist. Okay. At least The Arsonist you can make a joke about because The Arsonist did light every single place that he was in on fire. And that was funny. That was a funny point. I will.
All right, so assuming we're not
stand by
12 years old, then they hit the same notes. For 12-year-olds,
Every single place.
The Arsonist is so much funnier.
He lit everything on fire, and that was a consistent characterization.
It's not true.
She disappeared into the background and didn't have anything useful to say, and that was a consistent characterization.
The chickens, Jack.
Sarah was ahead of me reading The Arsonist, and so when I got through it and realized that there was not nearly as many things set on fire as she made it out to be, I was really sad.
Yeah.
It's literally everything. Every single thing is set on fire that he's in at any point in time, except for the cathedral, but that's stone, so you can't set it on fire
So
anyway.
Did he set the mill house on fire?
So the third test
Anyways.
was bland. And that's the best I can say about the third test. Sarah, do you agree?
Yeah, I the only thing I really remember about it is the shoes, where it's like we're going to try and imply that bad things have happened because there's
Some
a
sort of
storage room.
Auschwitz situation without any of the history.
Yeah. And also, like, none of that made sense. And then also you could grow the energy source without actually growing it around people, which was really disappointing because I thought that they had learned a way to grow the energy source, but it required the bodies of humans, so they killed off half their people for it. That would have been so freaking cool. But then you can just grow it, turns out. Maybe she was using the body of her chickens.
And you probably already said it, but the third test is a great example of, instead of men riding women, it's the atheists riding the religious, which comes across with equal success. The next book we read, what was that? The one where Jess
Wide
next
Shut, I
book.
think.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes
Yes.
Wide Shut. All right. As a horror fan, I love horror novels. That was a B movie, C movie probably. That was a comedic version of a B movie, but without the humor.
Yeah.
Not memorable for me. It was quick to read. It didn't bore me, but I didn't like it.
The prose was probably the best prose we found for the season, though. Even though it was bad. We specifically mentioned in the recording that it was bad when I was listening and editing. Editing, Sarah has a lot of insights because I listen to all this stuff over and over and over and over and over and
I
over and over
hate
again while I'm working on it.
myself for saying this. I want to preface with that.
But
I think
Say it.
I think the best
Say
prose
it.
that we have had were The Black Crown.
I thought you were going to say Sarah was right.
No.
Damn it.
It's repetitive as hell. Watch yourself, Jess.
no.
It's repetitive as hell if you ignore the fact that it hasn't been through a line edit, so he hasn't cut down all the repetition. The actual sentence structure is better than Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes Wide Shut lacks that repetitious nature, and that makes it easier to get through, easier to read. General sentence structure of this is happening, that's happening, this is a description. There were so many points in Eyes Wide Shut where they would have a description that I would have to go back and try and figure out what he had just described or what he had just said, especially for any sort of physical contact, that I struggle to say that was just from an understandable level better. Not that The Black Crown's good. But
I don't know.
think
So
it's worse structure-wise.
I know that you probably filter out There Will Be Thousands just because you hate it from the depths of your soul.
I've erased it from my memory.
From the blackest part. But I didn't have any complaints about the prose in that I can recall.
You're
Like
right.
everything else,
That
horrible.
might be true.
The prose,
That might be the best one.
fine.
I just erased it from my memory.
No, you're right. You are 100% right.
Yeah, I blacked
we
that
actually
one out.
said that. We when we were looking at the first chapter, I remember now, we actually said that. We said that the prose is really serviceable and doesn't cause any problems. And that is the best prose that we came across.
All right. Well, Jess is right, and that
It's just everything else was so bad.
Jess is right. And I actually hate that book having better prose more than I hate The Black Crown having better prose. So thank you for making it worse, Jess. Thank you for doing that to me.
See, the one thing is, the thing is, okay, the reason why I said Eyes Wide Shut had the best prose is because there are a few images that I can still conjure from that book There are none that I can get from The Black Crown, but to be fair, that book forces you to like glaze over while you're reading it. It is so tedious. And then There Will Be Thousands. It sets your... There Will Be Thousands is particularly astonishing in its existence. But that's why I said that Eyes Wide Shut had the best prose, because it was the only one that I can remember any physical details from. Like, there are images that I can conjure from the place, and even though I don't know what the characters looked like exactly, I can kind of picture certain things happening with them, and I generally can kind of like go through and like pattern out how the story happened. And that honestly is the strongest one, because most of them are so forgettable. I would really struggle to come up with anything for them specifically.
See, that's...
I probably liked Eyes Wide Shut better than the others, and that I think that having not actual warm fuzzies, but like a lack of the same level of negative spikies. No, spikies. Warm fuzzies, negative spikies.
No spiky fuzzies.
No negative spikies.
Like just less negative spikies than the other ones. And so I think it's easier to have almost fond memories of, for me, what was the first book in the series, and then it went downhill.
See,
we
my
were so
problem is
young,
that I have
so naive.
I have a steel trap for stories, and so if I thought long enough, I could tell you beat for beat what happens in each of these books. I black those out because I don't want to drain my mental processing with remembering them all the time.
But I don't want to suffer through that.
If I had to, if you sat me down and said, "Can you tell me every beat of this story?" Yes.
Yeah, but can you imagine a scene from it?
Yes.
Oh. Well.
Yes, each of them. But I also have a very overactive imagination. Been told that since I was probably born, I assume. So that's not a great indicator. I imagine lots and lots of things. So prose, and that's actually a great differentiation, is that having good prose, or in this case, mediocre, passable prose, but having good prose doesn't make a good story. People will tout this in the literary sphere, especially, where it's like the prose is so good, you need a master's to understand it, but if you get it, if you're smart enough, if you're good enough, if you get it, then it's beautiful, and that's what matters. Having beautiful prose, and that being all that matters, doesn't matter. Flowers are pretty, we're done. Story is what sticks with us. And so, as you can tell by us not even remembering which book had the best prose, even though we came to an obvious agreement once we went over them, prose matter, but they aren't everything. Story hits. I hate There Will Be Thousands. I hate it with a burning passion, morally. But that doesn't mean it was the worst story. It just means I hate it.
I think it was the worst story too, though, because it literally was the story between the stories. Like it wasn't the story, and that's what I held against it, because I don't really freaking care.
Yeah, I think The Arsonist was the worst told story.
But
at least I could see he was trying to do something.
See, I would say that Eyes Wide Shut's the worst story, because it didn't do anything. All it did was say, this is how these people got killed. And then it had a demon who nothing happened to. Like, it just went back to being a demon underground, I guess. A witch or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, there was no closure. There was no real start. It was just, these are people who did die in this order for question mark reasons, and now the book's over. Like, that was the story-wise. There was nothing.
But the reader experience is different, because you're in a horror, so you expect a bunch of people to die for no reason. So that's the thing, though. You can't really say that it is the worst of them, because it's in a different genre where people are expected in some way to be expendable. Now, it was bad because you also expect some of the people to not be expendable, but
there are different worst parts of each of them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Story,
that's
just
fair.
like if you take the structure of the story, what story was told to us, there is no story in Eyes Wide Shut.
But there is. It's the thing is, it's just
Eyes
very
wide open.
muddied. Eyes wide.
Eyes wide open.
Shut.
Eyes wide open.
Eyes wide.
Eyes wide open.
Oh, is it? It is. You told me the wrong thing. I had it down correctly, and I corrected myself to eyes wide shut because you said eyes wide shut.
It
was
seems
eyes wide
snappier.
open the entire time. Anyway.
Either way, but that story, nothing like there's no point to it. Is my point.
No, there was a point to it. It was just buried. And see, that's what I'm saying. Because the one chick in Eyes Wide Open, that was the one who survived at the end. I forget her name.
Eyes
I
Wide
forget anything
Chopin.
about her. Chopin. Chopin. Eyes Wide Chopin. It's very highbrow now. She was technically the one that the story should have centered around, and it tried its best to do that, but it also didn't want to give too much away by being like, oh, she's our protagonist, so she's going to survive. So it tried to do this thing of like, all the other people are protagonists too, and then she's the one who survives in the end. But she was the protagonist because, and you could tell from the beginning, because she was the one who had all of the conflict in her backstory. She was the one who had trouble with her family. She was the one who was kind of tough as nails because, she'd had to kind of live this life of scraping by while everybody else had kind of an easy life. And so she had the most characterization and backstory that way, but we didn't want to give away that she was going to be the one to survive in the end. And we didn't want us to be too invested in her because then we might guess that she's the one who survives at the end. So we just didn't put that much focus on her, but she was there and she was technically put into that character role of being sort of in that main spot. It's just that they were trying to muddy the waters to basically obfuscate what happened in the story, which we see a lot of. So she did go through this experience and survive. And that is what the story was essentially about at the end of the day.
So your argument is that we technically had a protagonist?
Yes.
Technically.
Alrighty, Rooski. My argument is that while using your argument against you, we hate There Will Be Thousands. If we're going by the fact that you expect this by getting into this genre or this book, we started with a bunch of blowing off murder and rape and saying it's A-okay and I'm going to do it anyway. And so if that's what you're looking for and you opened this book and you said, yeah, this is the story I want to read, then you got what you wanted. That's exactly the story you got. What you opened up to is the story you read.
No, but that's not a story.
It is a boring interim. But it went from, I have not decided that I'm going to help anyone, to I have changed my mind and now I'm going to help people. There was a change of heart. That did not happen in Eyes Wide Open.
Nope. There was no change of heart. Don't even bullshit me on that. There Will Be Thousands had no change of heart. And you can tell because in the very beginning, we got that, oh, I'm so much better than everybody else thing.
There was a change of action. There was a change of...
There was nothing in There Will Be Thousands. It was literally the in-between of stories.
It is the in-between of stories.
Stories.
But written out. Mm-hmm.
But there was no story.
I still think there's more of a story than Eyes Wide Open. It's not more fun to read.
Eyes Wide Open.
It's not better.
Eyes Wide Open, we acquired a ghost. One of us, at least, is from a rough background and managed to survive the ghost. And that's the story. It is badly written, but it is a story. There Will Be Thousands had literally nothing except for bumbling around.
There Will Be Thousands. We acquired a bandit troop. We lost said bandit troop, acquired a giant dog on a mountain, got sold into slavery, sold quote unquote, lost that selling into slavery, killed a bunch of people, left to go find our friend on accident, came back, got people out of the country, and then got a new not bandit troop to free slaves.
See, that's not a story. That's just a bunch of shit happening.
Which is how I would describe Eyes Wide Open.
No, Eyes Wide Open had an arc. We acquired a ghost. We got attacked by the ghost. We survived the ghost. Those are 3 arcs, 3 pieces of a story arc. It is more than we just bumbled around from place to place until the story's over.
I would argue that it's not.
Well, you can argue all you want, but you're wrong.
She didn't do anything to defeat the ghost. She bumbled around.
She set them on fire.
She bumbled around until she was being chased and then was like, oh shit, I guess I have to fight back, and then fought back because it was suddenly happening to her. Like, there's a single scene where she's like, I guess this is happening. Better run. This is what I have to do to survive. Like, that's a chase scene. That's not a story.
But also, it is a horror, has different genre expectations.
I'm sorry, are you lecturing me on horror genre expectations?
Yes.
Because this is not the genre expectation. That is
answer me this, Jack.
Teenage version of the genre expectation, where you're like, as long as there's blood and maybe kind of sex, then it's a horror. Not true.
Yeah. No. But that's the thing. Okay, it may be lowbrow. It may not be a good horror, but it is still a horror within the horror genre, and it follows basically all of the tenets. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So you can say that. But as far as comparing There Will Be Thousands to other fantasies, it's trash.
Correct. And so is Eyes Wide Open to other horrors. It's trash.
Eyes Wide Open is like so a kind of run-of-the-mill horror.
I am so upset that you're making me defend There Will Be Thousands. I hate this book so much. I do not want to be in its defense. I do not want to be here saying that this is better than any other book. I hate it more than the other books. I enjoyed reading Eyes Wide Open more than I enjoyed reading There Will Be Thousands, and I need you all to know that. I hate it so much. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And it had more of a story than Eyes Wide Open, and I hate it. Okay.
Actually,
do not make me defend it again. I think we've argued our different points.
Well, okay.
I don't want to be here.
So that goes into, I had a question of what was your least and most favorite book and why? And I'm going to go grab more sake really quick.
So There Will Be Thousands will be my least.
Poor Jack.
I hate it so much. Recognizing that I'm defending it, I was like, this is not where I want to stake my flag. The ground is poison. It's hard and cold. It makes me sad.
I don't even know, man. I feel like There Will Be Thousands tries really hard to have a story and at least hints at an overarching story, even if we're in the middle of it.
It has events that link together. It says there's going to be stuff after this, and there was stuff before this. And actually, both things are told in monologue format of exactly what comes after and before. So, like, I can piece it together. When I look at Eyes Wide Open, it's just like, this is a string of murders. The ghost does exist and thus commits the murders. But I'm not a slasher fan, because I think the same thing of slasher movies, where it's like, those are things that happened. Like, okay, but why do I care? And I don't. That's it. There's no attempt to make me care. Best book, though, my most enjoyed book reading this season. Oh no, I have to pick one.
Yeah, it's not good.
You guys are going to be shocked at my selection.
Probably because all of them are backrunners. I will hate myself again for saying this. And I will preface with, I can't handle tuning out. So, like, whenever something makes me tired to read it and makes me want to go to sleep, it affects the rest of my life in the way that other books don't. Most books I just put down and then move on with my life, and then I come back to it. So that automatically counts out the most placid of the books, which are The Third Test and The Arsonist. The book that I actually had the least problem reading, again, hate myself, is The Black Crown. Because it was just boring things that happened, and I went, okay, we're in a side quest, and then I went, okay, we're in another side quest, and I went, okay, we're in another side quest. And it didn't make sense. It wasn't fun, but I got through it. And, like, it didn't make me hate myself. It didn't make me do my taxes. It was fine. I didn't, like, the beginning sucked and the end sucked, but the middle was just a regular drag. So, you know.
The end. Oh, the end was so
The
gloriously bad.
The best part of the end was where it ended.
Yeah.
So like I said, I hate that's the criteria we're choosing from, but again, it didn't make me do my taxes.
I think that The Arsonist was the worst for me. This just was bad on like every level.
Yeah.
And then I think that the least offensive was Eyes Wide Open, because at least it was like short and had some redeeming qualities, even if like just the fact that there wasn't like any rhyme or reason behind the demon made me not happy.
Yeah. And that's fair. And like if I didn't love horror so much, then I could choose Eyes Wide Open, but I love the horror genre, and that made it more offensive to me.
I could see that.
Yeah, you're personally affronted, and that's the problem.
I had the most fun with The Black Crown because I hated it so much. Like it was like there was just so much. I ran out of red ink. I almost ran out of red. Did I run out of red stickies on that one, or did I save one for the next book? Anyways, it was a hot mess, but I had fun. It's like when you intentionally watch a really low-rated horror movie because you know it's going to be hilariously bad.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Difference is you drink for the low-rated horror movies, and I can't drink for 3 days straight, and that's what 620 pages costs me is 3 days. Sans taking care of the household and having a life and having a job and sleeping, but outside of that, 3 days.
See, The Black Crown was my least favorite because it was just such a slog. Like
Thank you for
everything
saying
about
that.
it was just a slog.
I needed someone to say that. I needed it to be also on the bottom because that's how I feel in my heart, but I also feel that with all of them. So, thank you.
You're gonna hate my top pick.
It's going to be The Arsonist?
It's gonna be The Arsonist.
Okay, as long as
Because here's the thing.
As long as it's not There Will Be Thousands.
It's not
As long
There
as
Will Be
no one
Thousands.
picks There Will Be Thousands,
Look,
I'm happy.
There is no redeeming the story of There Will Be Thousands. The reason is because it hits wrong on every single level. It hits wrong on the character level, the story level. It's not even the story that wanted to be told with these characters. So it's like everything about that was wrong.
And it's also, it hits wrong on a moral level. And then tells you that you're supposed to morally be happy with it. That's the problem. You can hit wrong on a moral level and move on with it because it's supposed to be morally wrong. Or you're like, okay, I disagree, whatever. But this one hits wrong. I don't want to meet the person who wrote it.
See, I don't care about morals.
I wouldn't want to meet the person who wrote it. Like, who could think that was...
Yeah, who thinks we're going to be rooting for this person afterward? Yeah, it's being told that we should root for them at the end. And we're like, no. Like, I mean... You all have presumably listened to that podcast episode, and we told you from prologue chapter 1, this person's not redeemable.
Yeah. But the thing is, I am actively writing a story with a protagonist who is not redeemable. He is not redeemable, and I know that, which is why I'm trying very, very hard to force people to be on his side from the very beginning. Because then when he starts doing the irredeemable things and being irredeemable, he's going to be in a position where people still have to root for him, and they're going to feel really awful about that, which is great.
But your position isn't, 3/4 of the way in saying, by the way, he told me that he would marry me when we got older, even though I did his laundry. And so I'm in love with him, and so I murdered 30 people. Like,
you don't know that. You haven't read book 3.
That's not your position.
You don't know book 3.
If that's her position in book 3, I will give all of you money. All of you. Anyone who listens. If that's her position when book 3 comes out. If that's what she says 3/4 of the way through the book.
It's not actually, guys.
She might edit it to be that, just to make you pay all that money.
No, I wouldn't. I couldn't do that to my own work. But the point is, though, is that I understand the difficulty of writing an irredeemable character. It's just the problem is that the writer wanted you to like this character too, and they didn't know how to accomplish that. So it's like you can write an irredeemable character. It's just really, really difficult to also make the audience root for the irredeemable character. Because even like Deadpool is redeemable. He's got a golden heart. That's the thing. And people don't get that like the reason why these people can get away with doing shit that's really shady is that people generally like them as characters, like them as people, is kind of what that translates to. And then they also, like, there's enough there that they can attach to before anything else goes to shit. So it's like, you need to give them that build up.
We ranted on this so hard in There Will Be Thousands, but it's worth saying again. Allowing your readers to dissociate between the actions of the character in real life is crucial. None of us are murder victims. Some of us are sexual assault victims. You don't isolate people with murder because they're not murder victims.
Oh God. Hi, dummy. Hi, dummy.
She's talking to me.
Climbing me.
Oh, so cute.
But that's worth noting, is like, if you're going to make an irredeemable character, make sure that they're fictionally irredeemable if you want the reader to like them.
Well, and I think sexual assault is a particular point that needs to be addressed, because
minefield.
How you oh, it is a minefield. It's absolutely a minefield. But the thing about it that people don't get is that you can't have it as a plot point. It shouldn't be a plot point. You don't want your whole plot to rely on this thing unless the point is about the journey of somebody who is victimized. But you can't have it be just like this like thing out there. Like,
a good version of it is the book Unbelievable. It's a true account. I think they made a limited Netflix series about it.
Yeah, I watched that.
And it's probably good if they followed the book. But that's what Sarah is talking about with the entire journey is about healing from being victimized. They treat it realistically and they move forward.
Yeah. I liked the show, but it wasn't like especially memorable to me. So the book was probably better.
Maybe Netflix. Yeah, I was going to say maybe Netflix didn't do a phenomenal job with that adaptation. They've been known to not.
Yeah.
It's good enough that they made a Netflix show about it when it centers solely around rape. So that's a thing. That's what I'm saying. If rape is your plot point, then it's exactly what Sarah said, where it needs to be about the journey and the healing process afterwards. It's not just thrown out there willy frickin' nilly like There Will Be Thousands.
Well, because it's immature too. And I'm just going to, like,
immature,
from
insensitive.
The standpoint. Well, yeah, but like stripping away everything emotional about it, because there is a lot of emotionality obviously built into it, because it is a awful, awful thing that happens to way too many people. But if you strip all that away, it's just not understanding at a base level what impact these things have on someone. So the impacts whenever they try to be vulnerable with anybody else, whenever they try to be intimate with anybody else, those things come out and they have to unlearn them. So especially if your protagonist is in a place where they are the ones either causing or receiving that, it's they have to deal with that fallout just in very different ways. In the case of causing it, you can't have There Will Be Thousands where they just get taken aside by every character and told, you're really a good person, don't worry, I can see it in you, don't worry, I know you're good. That's literally what happened over and over and over again in There Will Be Thousands. You had this protagonist who was like, oh, I cannot be good. I am a secret woman who is also being very, very bad. And I can't be possibly good. And then everyone took this character aside and gave them the pep talk of, no, you really are. You're a good person. I promise.
But they've also probably listened to that episode, which is where we said all of that. in detail.
They may not have.
So why was The Arsonist your favorite? That's where we're at, actually. Side rant.
Okay.
Why was The Arsonist your
The
favorite?
Arsonist. No. I am not known for going on rants at all. I don't know what you're talking about. You are drunk. The Arsonist.
No.
Someone is.
I was gonna say, I think
Someone.
Jesse, you need to drink more.
I'm on my third twisted tea in 2.5 hours.
That's pathetic.
Shut up.
I have had 6 ounces of rum and a half of a sake. 180 milliliters. If we're talking in
Well then.
measure. So anyway, The Arsonist, because it was good-heartedly teenage, was the reason.
Good-heartedly.
No, it was good-heartedly teenage.
Saw what he did to his wolf.
He just literally killed it and moved on.
He also
did the
left it alone
a
with
single
no water.
tear. Yeah, but
He never
it was
got
just
past
stupid.
that.
Everything was stupid. But
I never got past that. I have dogs.
He did the equivalent. Yeah, but everything in it was stupid. Like literally nothing was analogous to reality. So you can't get offended by literally anything because it was just like, this is a teenager's idea of what the world is like.
Counterpoint, I can be offended by all of it. Because someone who is an adult should have read that and said, this should not be published in this state.
No. Because
Like the
teenagers do
author.
shit all the time. You can't hate them for it.
I don't hate him. I'm just offended. There's a difference.
I know. I'm saying you can't be offended by teenagers. They're just... Look, here's the thing. Okay, teenagers, any teenagers, I know you're not supposed to technically be on this platform because you're not supposed to have a... I guess 16, I think, is the thing. But okay, if you are under 16, just give me a quick PSA. Because I was a hard-headed little shithead in my teen years. And I'm in my mid-30s now, so I have some authority to talk on the topic. Everything everyone says about you needing to mature and everything is true. And it's okay because you're still fine as a person. And it's okay. You got a lot of growing to do. You don't need to be everything that you want to be right now. And you're going to do fine when you're an adult. So if you're a teenager listening to this, you're good. And also if you're an adult listening to this, be a little nicer to your teenagers because they're stupid and they're at a very hard age developmentally. Anyway, so I think that's actually a really good segue into how we would fix things. Because you guys are asking why I don't hate The Arsonist. And part of it is because...
You have a plan.
The potential.
Yeah.
The potential.
Okay, tell us about your potential, Sarah.
Okay. So, the potential in The Arsonist, I think is pretty strong. And the reason is because this is what I would consider pure-hearted desire to write a fantasy. So, at its core, we have this thing where the character is split off, he's cursed, he is one of a kind, right? So we did ascertain that accurately. He's a young adult, okay? So he's new, but he's very competent, okay? So these are power fantasies of a teenager. The things of being able to achieve what you want, being the competent one, being all these things, being the cool person, being the powerful person. These are power fantasies of a teenager. So I am operating under the assumption that this is probably a story that the author came up with when they were a teenager. And the reason why I think that is because I wrote similar stories when I was a teenager. There were a lot of self-inserts and a lot of just, the person who overcomes all the odds and, manages to kind of, win the hearts of all, and everybody wants them and everybody loves them and everybody thinks they're cool, and even though people don't people downplay what they can do, but they can do so much more. It's at its core a teenage power fantasy. And so what it made me think of was in, kind of a fond way, a lot of these stories that I've abandoned. Because one of the things as a writer that you go through is maturation. And a part of that maturation is identifying those stories that aren't worth being told. And unfortunately, a lot of those stories are ones that you come up with when you're in your teens. Now, it's not to say all of those stories are inherently bad, because they're not. They're just elements of storytelling that you can pull on later, typically. They're not usually stories that are strong enough to be told on their own. And I realized this when I was working on a story that actually I think is still pretty strong. It was kind of a fun thing where it's like, aliens are invading, but people basically translated them as demons and we had a fight with them. It's a good story premise at its core, but I realized that I didn't want to take it through the editing process at the time. Maybe someday I do, but I don't know. But that was a story that I deliberately stepped away from before editing through it the way that I am with the series that I'm working on now. And one of the things I realized in that is that I had matured past a lot of the concepts in that previous story, and I would need to change it significantly in order to accommodate the maturation that I had achieved as a person. So the thing that the arsonist really needs more than anything else is for the author to grow about 10 years. And then take a step back and recognize the impulses that are being represented in the writing. So we have this family. That is one theme that does show up a lot, is that everyone is family in that story to the point where we thought it was kind of incestuous. But you can represent this because what it really shows is a strong family unit. A strong family unit that also has, in some way, power or something to pass down to the young person that is growing up within this framework or within this fractured framework as the story shows. So it's really this process of kind of taking that step back and putting a little bit of distance between ourselves and the concepts that are being represented here. So we have that concept of family, that concept of strength is a big one too.
A concept of inherent worth is there.
Yes, the concept of inherent worth.
Yeah,
is
he presents it through genealogy mostly, but the idea that you realize that you are inherently worthy and other people will realize that upon seeing you is very heavy in the book.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, because that's not, the thing is, I think a lot of people see a concept like that and they inherently say that that in itself is immature. It is not in itself immature. Most stories are going to be about a unique person because there is this, I would say, fact that each of us are unique. There's such a combination of circumstances and DNA and everything that lends into each person that there is always a unique outcome of everything that we do, no matter what. And if we think that, will want to represent that in stories. So it is not inherently immature to represent that. It is just the way that you bring it across. Because bringing it across by genealogy, I think, is a kind of immature way to do that. You're just who you are because you're born that way.
It's fine until you do it 7 times in a row.
Okay, but Jack, we're trying to be optimistic here.
I'm just saying that, there are successful stories, successful novels where it comes across really well that, oh my God, it turns out your dreams that you weren't an orphan and you were a princess, which are very common for orphans, by the way, are true. But it's the repetition of expecting a shocked gasp from the same reveal over and over again. That's the immature part.
Well, and I think, so it was immature with our main character because the thing is, if you wanted to fix the arsonist, it should be a fixed viewpoint. Third person limited with the arsonist. I know we really want to see everybody else's viewpoints, but we really don't need them. We really don't need them.
If you wanted to fix the arsonist, then we should have focused on the curse rather than saying, this is a curse, and then moving on. Because that's the actual genealogy that would have mattered to him.
I am fixing the arsonist.
You're not fixing it. You're telling us about what to do with these conceptual items. And I'm not fixing it either. I'm just saying that the genealogy isn't what matters about the arsonist. He didn't care that he was related to these particular people, aside from the fact that they could tell him more about himself. What he cared about was the sword from the father that he knew. And what he cared about was, until he stopped asking questions, his own curse and what he was born from. Delving more into that curse and because he's not really human, what he is, that would have made the arsonist.
Mm. Yeah, but that's actually, I think, where being an adult, because I am assuming the author was an adult when they did a lot of the writing for it.
Sad assumption.
That's actually where I am assuming it regardless. I actually think that's where being an adult spoiled it a little bit, because here's the thing. I'm going to say this as plainly as I can. There is a purity to the stupidity of the things that you write when you're a teen that is actually very endearing. And that's kind of what I was talking about, I think, in one of the topic videos earlier in the season. And that, like, I've read some stuff that was shit. It was really bad when I read it. But it was really, really fun. And fun things are fun, believe it or not. The thing is, adult sensibilities often clash with these things. And I think that was the problem, is that we didn't let the arsonist kind of focus on the idea of his curse and his background, because that would be immature, that would be cliche. And so we ruined it because we didn't want to do that. And so, like, you can have these things. The point is, the piece needs to work in harmony with itself. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be internally consistent. And that's kind of the problem with trying to edit something that you wrote as a teenager when you're an adult, because what you're going to do is you're going to bring some of some of that adult knowledge and those adult proclivities to a piece that was written with the semi-purity of a teenager still. Like there's a weird in-between state that you're in at that point in time developmentally that you just are not in as an adult anymore. And so then you try to revisit a piece and edit it for some of your newer adult proclivities and some of your newer adult mindset. And what happens is the piece becomes internally inconsistent, because internal consistency is more important than, I would say, anything else.
Fact.
It can be crap, but if it's internally consistent, it can be much more enjoyable than most things out there, because most things out there are so piecemeal. They're patched together like a quilt, but without any of the skill required to pull a quilt together. and that's half the problem. You need to write something for the era that you're in, or let something be in the era that you wrote it in. You can't have both. I don't know if that makes sense.
And a lot of people do, when they go back to their old works, they age it up because they now see issues with it, and they now see where it doesn't make sense, and then they bring it up to their current level, their current age, their current viewpoint. And they do lose a lot of the original story by doing that. And that's a choice. Keeping that original story can be the hard part.
Oh my God, I should reread my original draft of this book.
Fact. Now you have 2 books to read.
Oh my God, I was like,
oh no,
17, 18 when I wrote it, and I'm
Please do
now.
that. Please do that.
Don't say your actual age on stream.
Too late. And actually also message us with differences that you find.
Well, and that's the thing. So that's the reason why my topic was mostly aging up the things that you do, because if you do see a spark in something that you wrote before and you do want to mature it, you do have to understand most of what happens in your story will change, because the things that you come up with, and this is why I hate Aragon, because everyone who reads Aragon thinks that you can publish then as a teen and you're going to be really successful and good. Aragon wasn't good. Just so everyone is aware, I'm going to go on the record and say Aragon sucked as a book. I didn't like it, and it put unfair pressure on me as a teenager, thinking that that was normal. And also, it wasn't well written. But the important thing is that you will have to go back. You will have to say most of these things don't make sense, and you will have to let them go. And you'll have to keep a few elements of your story and basically rebuild it from the ground up if you want to write something that you conceptualized as a teenager and write it whenever you're a grown adult with mature experiences and some life behind you. That's what you have to be willing to do if you want that to be successful. You will not be successful if you can't let those things go. It's just, there isn't a way to keep them because they were sprouted from a place of immaturity, and trying to pair them with a mature mindset is always going to result in disaster. And unfortunately, I think that's what happened with many of the pieces that are on our shelf. And that's why they feel the way that they do. They feel immature at their core because they were something that somebody came up with at some point in time when they were young, and then they decided to finally write it and whatever, whenever they were older. And unfortunately, you can't do that because the way that we conceptualize the world when we're a teenager is just not accurate.
As a side note, whenever you're looking at middle grade works, it's protagonist interacting with the world, because at that age, they are finding themselves in the world and how the world interacts with them. When you get into YA, it's the protagonist interacting with self, because they're finding themselves and figuring out who they are. And when you get into adult, it's protagonist interacting with world again, because now that you know who you are, what are you to the greater outside? That's one of the issues when you are at the point of protagonist interacting with world. How do you get back into protagonist interacting with self in thinking of the same story when you're not at that place anymore? But that's a great segue into my part, which I'm tackling the Black Crown, and I, again, hate. And I do mean that word. I mean it. Hate. I hate that I am choosing the Black Crown. I hate that the Black Crown exists.
You like fixing things.
I do love fixing things. I hate that I listened to an interview by the author of the Black Crown, but it did give me, similar to what Sarah was saying, an insight into his mindset, in that he was doing a D&D campaign with his child, apparently, and they started at the end and then went, what would happen to cause the main character to get to this point? And as soon as he said that, it made sense. Because he went, we need to get here, and then backtracked, and then never read it from the beginning to the end to see if that made sense, to see if it actually flowed, to see if these events connected to each other in a way that's realistic. Mine is a much more, and this is unlikely, but if anyone knows the author of The Black Crown, if anyone is friends with him, please reach out, have him listen to this video, skip to this part. This is how you can fix your book so that it actually makes sense. And I know, based off of just that interview in December, that you don't yet realize that your book doesn't make sense and you think that readers are being contrarian. It physically doesn't make sense. The actions that they take do not make sense.
I have a small point here, because you've said this before when we were talking about the Black Crown the first time, but one of the strengths of independent publishing is that you can go back and fix it.
Yes, you can.
Sure.
Absolutely. I don't think you're listening to this. I don't think you will ever listen to this, but please, author, go back and change the past. Please edit.
Make Orc City
how
great
I
again.
would fix, make it be. How I would fix the Black Crown is that rather than Marvolo, as we all remember is the Jester character, being secretly evil and also secretly inept, as everything he tries past getting Ragoth to leave doesn't work, he should have played a bigger role and been the big bad of this book. If he drove Ragoth out, not on the king's orders, but because he had figured out that Ragoth could touch the Black Crown and wanted Ragoth to fetch it for him and sell the Black Crown on the black market or use it for himself, whatever that was, it would have been much better. It would have tied the whole thing together rather than made it coincidental. Marvolo could have also given Ragoth a legitimately enchanted sword, with the larger enchantment hiding a smaller spell that would alert him to when the crown is near or teleport the crown to him or him to the crown. That would have caused a whole lot more tension in the novel. The potion that Marvolo kept trying to give to Ragoth could have been one for some level of enslavement or brainwashing, since Ragoth can actually use the crown. That way, someone else could use Ragoth to mind control the orcs, and it's basically an orc army for sale. You know that Marvolo would have at least one buyer at the end, so even though they do kill Marvolo, it's clear there's still a bigger bad after Ragoth, who knows how the crown works and will stop at nothing to hone its power. With that, they should have had Court get arrested, shown up to help him, and found out that the proceedings had been moved up without notifying anyone, and he'd already been sentenced and moved to a far-off prison. If you're going to end the book past where the story actually ends, make sure that every piece of it, every single piece, is a larger cliffhanger. Add tension with every single bit of plot that you keep going with. Otherwise, there's no point in keeping the plot going. With Deneth's reveal, including the fact that she's alive, she should have been saved. That should have been saved for the next book. Rather than being casually arrested, the dwarves should have come for Mora to force her to pay for her crimes on their terms. This actually splits the party in a way that feels tense. Deneth is dead. Court is in prison. Mora is dragged off unwillingly and will have to pay for crimes in a place that we haven't seen yet by people we haven't seen yet. That is tense. All the while, the orcs require constant handling, forcing Ragoth to stay back, and someone powerful is after Ragoth in a way that could doom all orcs if they succeed. That, fundamentally, without touching the entire middle of the story, would fix it so that it makes sense, and it has way more tension leading into the next book. Please do that. Or take that as a suggestion and do something like that.
But whatever
and
you
also
do,
cut 200 pages of prose.
Trim out the journey some. It's too much.
Thank you. Please and thank you.
Yeah, if anyone knows him, send us his way.
I know people who know him. Kind of.
Then I've said what I've said. Send us his way.
I'll tag people as appropriate.
That leaves you, Jess.
All
You
right.
chose the most insurmountable book of all. An impossible task.
Fix it!
I was told it would be impossible to fix There Will Be Thousands, and I didn't spend as much time thinking about it as I wanted to because I'm a busy person, it turns out. But
And also, There Will Be Thousands hurts to think about.
it does. But I was thinking that it could be along the lines of, instead of being a slaver, our main character could be masquerading as the prince, not like as thoroughly in disguise, you know, not like a disguise within a disguise, just like the prince, but like styled himself differently. Like she's supposed to eventually be found as the prince, right?
The point is to be caught, yeah.
Yeah. So like pencil whip it. It doesn't, she's like, I have to be so thorough. No, it's fine. And make it to where slavery is legal and an accepted institution within the country, and what her band is doing is freeing slaves. And they're hunted because of that, because slavery is a backbone of the country. So obviously it's not okay to free the slaves. And then she's not a reprehensible person for the entire story, but also there is genuine like tension. There's like, she's in trouble because she's, legitimately hunted for what she does. And then if you really need her to feel like a bad person, then you could just have her slowly realize, as she's separated from the influence of, the dude that groomed her as a child, that maybe it wasn't cool to just take over the prince's identity and steal his memories when
maybe you should have made me kill 36 people as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, maybe that was not good. Start to feel bad about it. Run into the prince.
Also, maybe as a 10-year-old, you're not really held to those standards that an adult made you do.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there.
An
adult groomed you.
Instead of having the guy that groomed her into doing this be with her on this quest, have him be the big bad that comes to the country later.
That would be really good.
Yeah. So like he sent her on her way to get her and the prince out of the way, because he had his own nefarious goals in the kingdom, and having somebody who's like next in line for power was not good for him. And so
maybe he intended for her to come back to the kingdom eventually and continue being the prince after being caught, and then that puts him in a position of power.
Yeah.
And he's like, this would make sure that they never find him because they think that he's there. Mm-hmm. That would have also fit with it.
She could have also just talked to the prince at some point and been like, yo, here's what happened, because I was 10 when it happened and we saved you from this. And then he's like, no, I don't want that to be the way that it is. And then they come into conflict with one dude because they were both children when it happened.
I was thinking more along the lines of they were split up. Like the guy intentionally told her as a part of the plan that they had to split up. She had to be away from the prince to keep the prince safe. But then she does run into him. And despite not having his memories, he's still grown into like the sort of person she kind of expected him to be, except he's not a prince. And she's like, wow, I'm realizing I probably really messed up. And have the conflict of being afraid of telling him and afraid of giving him back his memories because now he's going to hate you. But finally realizing that she needs to, and, having that happen and having him be like, yeah, that sucks, but you were 10, dude.
Yeah. Something I would have loved in quote unquote fixing this unfixable book is if instead of saying, oh, none of our royals for some unknown reason want to be murdered, under this weird religious flag by another clan. So only this small child will agree to it because he's extra good-hearted and martyry. Instead of that, he's chosen by that other cult, by that other land, by whatever prophecy we choose for the story. Could be just whoever has the bluest eyes. It doesn't matter. He is chosen, and so they do go to war. It takes that long. But it comes to the realization that based off of the magic that we do possess, this person is still alive. And so they're trying to find him to continue that ritual. And all of the things that she has tried to do and has done throughout the book aren't actually going to stop it. Mm-hmm. Because they're still seeking him out to do exactly what they wanted to do when he was 10 and she was 10.
Yeah.
And then that would bring the backstory that apparently pushed us to this point and the forward story together. Mm-hmm. So that they have to collide. Because right now they just kind of exist.
Yeah.
Next to each other.
But the thing is, the entire thing is difficult because it started when she's 10 years old and the story that we get happens when she is 10 years later. She's 20 years old.
I will say that is such a younger author, a pre-ego crushing, a whatever you want to call it, type of writing where whatever decision you made as a small child holds up into your adulthood and never wavers. It's fun sometimes. I will say it's fun. I read fan fictions with it. I read books with it. It can be silly. It can be fine. But if you're treating it any sort of seriously, it doesn't make sense at all.
Nope.
She never fell in love with anyone else. Her love for this boy she met when she was 10 and hasn't seen since she was 10, regardless of all the horrible things she's had to do for him, never wavered.
Dude, that would have been so fun if she did fall in love with somebody else. She's 20. Of course, she's gonna, like, in the last 3 years, she hasn't had a single fucking crush. I had a crush every other week when I was in high school.
And especially if, like, she didn't have a crush until she separated from the guy who groomed her, who kept reminding her about how she had to do this for the prince and how it was guilt-ridden to like anyone else or even to look at anyone else. And then once she's away, she's like, maybe that guy is cute. And maybe that girl is cute. And maybe I just do want to not be a virgin. Who knows?
Yeah.
What's this guy with the spider chick all about?
It's built
Like,
as
what
a
are they
story
into?
and never taken seriously. Even though it holds such weighty topics.
It's immature.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry we're jumping in on you, Jess.
extraordinarily immature.
I think
Yeah, sorry.
it occurred to me that I don't think that the book ever addressed them changing the original prince's appearance.
It didn't.
Yeah. So she is disguised within a disguise as the prince. But there's someone who just actually looks like and is the prince running around. That makes sense.
Yes.
I think it could be fun, though, if you did it intentionally, like the way that we've been talking about a little bit, where she disguised herself as the prince, but only like vague cosmetic differences. Like she was like just trying to hide it a little as if she were the real prince. And then she runs into the actual prince and it's like a Spider-Man meme. They're just pointing at each other like, we look the same.
I do think the problem with the concept that the author came up with was that they wanted the protagonist to be so competent that they wanted to get caught, but believed that the prince would be competent enough to not get caught. And so they wanted to be caught while trying actively to not get caught. And that's making them incompetent if their goal is to get caught.
Yeah.
And so they ended up in this little spiral loop of competence versus incompetence versus perceived incompetence that just wrecked them.
Also, if you named her Sitter because she sits to pee, then you should have just committed to it and mentioned it in the story.
Jess, that wasn't funny the first time.
It's the only thing I liked about the damn book, okay?
See, and you can tell how my brain
It was a
works because I
terrible
can give you a play-by-play of the book, but I can't tell you any of their names. I'm just like, main character, prince. But I think all of those would help the plot a lot while keeping with generally what the author was trying to do. It's difficult because what the author was trying to do didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But if you pick a lane, then you can adjust the rest of the pieces around it. If our lane, which it seems to be the author's point, is that flattest A to B possible, main character has done a lot of bad things. Main character is redeemed at the end because now we understand why they did it. Most ironed out version of that book physically possible. I think that what Jess says works.
But you know the thing is, no, you're right. What Jess says works, but the thing is, you could still be just a little bit of I hate that people avoid tropes so much because they're like, oh, I want everything to be so unique. It's much more difficult to actually know and use tropes effectively. Are you drinking wine out of the
Good for
bottle,
you.
fucking lush?
I'm sorry.
Get her
Are we
done.
talking about There Will
Jealous.
Be Thousands?
I'm talking about everything in this season.
If There Will Be Thousands is mentioned, I take a swig.
Okay, that's a shot. I forgot my point. Yay.
And I'm the one drinking out of the bottle.
Shut up. I had 6 shots of sneaking, whatever it's called, and a sake. So the only thing that's missing is some delicious, delicious sushi. So if anyone wants to sponsor me for sushi, you can donate to the channel and donate specifically to Sarah's Sushi Fund, and it will go directly into my pocket for delicious sushi dinner so that I can have that with my sake next time.
All right, so someone's off topic. Point being, yes.
On topic.
What Jess says will work and would be lovely. Tropes are something which are tropes for a reason. We as a reading community, as well as a writing community, love to gatekeep, as we have said in earlier videos, as we have said in this video. Gatekeeping in ways that we defend ourselves by putting others down. Tropes aren't necessarily bad unless they're done badly. This book uses a lot of tropes, and it could be done well. The tropes could be done well. The hidden identity, the hidden prince, the moving to another kingdom. I honestly think if we had nixed all of the rape and focused on there being focused on there being the differentiation between these kingdoms and how their cultures differed and how we had these political, I don't know, sacrifice alliances. Is that what you would call them?
Yeah.
Kinda.
And also if there had been hints at her being a secret woman at all.
Yeah.
Anything at all.
Hints. Even any hints
Other
at her
than,
being
like,
another person.
So nice. Yeah. I'm so soft towards other people. I must be very gentle as a personality.
Or even, not even that, just like hints of her hiding her personality, her having to make sure that no one else was around when she went to the bathroom, her having to make sure that no one else was looking when she was on her period, that no blood-sucking beasts that existed in this world could smell her out, that whatever happened to hide the fact that you're a woman, which is biologically, monthly, everything different from being a man, is hidden in a realm full of men.
Well, Jack, that's very, very different. Okay, so here's the thing. We did spell it out in that we didn't rape the other women.
Ugh.
But
Gross.
So without ragging necessarily on the book, which we've done enough of, we have thoroughly hated it, me especially, but for fixing it. Like, tropes can be fun. Tropes can be good. Look at Twilight.
Yeah.
Tropes can be fun. There's a reason, even with its terrible writing, that it sold so many copies, and that's because tropes are fun.
That's true.
But you have to play into them in the right way.
Yeah.
You have to play into them in a way that seems lighthearted, that makes us feel like we should connect with this person. Whereas this author was so intent on hiding those reveals that they made us not want to connect with their main character.
You know what I would have liked better? You know, people joke about, in Mulan, about Shang, the guy, love interest, realizing that he might be like bi, because that Ping, he's really cool. And then Ping turns out to be a girl. You know, that I think this book would have been more fun if we had known from fairly early on that she actually is a woman. And there was like a guy romance character who was like confused because he didn't think he was gay, but damn.
I would have loved that so much. This book, even as it is, this book could have really benefited from some comedic relief. All of the comedic relief in this book was badly handled. Not in the same way as The Arsonist, where they just said a line and then everyone laughed hysterically. That's a different kind of badly handled. But in this book, it just like, it was so dense and dark that it didn't want to give up any of its tension, quote unquote tension, for the lackadaisical, for the fun, for the people trying to cheer each other up. So even when they did cheer each other up or laugh. As a reader, we were just staring at the page like, nah, bro, this is still really bad.
I'm going to go on the record really quick because There Will Be Thousands was absolutely made for me. I love awful, dark, awful things where everyone is being awful and nothing good is happening and everything is awful. And none of that bore fruit for somebody who likes that stuff. I just want to throw it out there because people are like, oh, well, it's just not meant for you. No, this book theoretically was made for me. It was theoretically made for me. And it was shit.
I think that Jess is right. And that it could be good with those changes. With picking a lane. With focusing on one thing. Be it we want a redemption arc. Or be it we want to change the world, because that seems to be what we're doing with the end, the epilogue. But picking what we want and leaning into the tropes that we really care about.
Yeah. All right.
On the Black Crown, by the way, what's the called? What is the? It's not Arial. It's not Calibri. What's the font?
Comic Sans.
That the words
Verdana?
Comic Sans.
For Black Crown. Because it is different.
I don't know. I don't know fonts very well. I'm just shouting out the names of fonts that are sometimes book fonts.
I've said it a million times. I hate myself. Whenever I was like 150 pages in, 200 pages into the Black Crown, I looked at my husband and I said that this might be one of the books that was actually okay. Because it was just okay. It was just continuing on to be okay, to do nothing, to be okay. And nothing was happening, and we did some side quests, and nothing was happening, and it was fine. It's the beginning and ends that were egregious, and the middle was way too long. But, like, compared to the offensive things, again, ignoring the beginning and end being terrible. In the middle, where they were just traveling, I was like, I mean, it's a book.
Yeah.
I would DNF this if I could. But I've DNF'd other ones also, and they got published and they were doing fine. I thought it was gonna be okay. Like, once you got past the stupid beginning and the reasons that he left that didn't make any sense, I was like, all right, now we're on the story. The guy just couldn't do a beginning. And then he just couldn't do an end also. Middle was boring, but it was there. Like, I wasn't upset. I was upset by There Will Be Thousands.
I turned to, because I was like, what is 150? What is that page 150? And it turned
just
out
so you all know, before Sarah goes into this, because I finished first, because I'm obsessive compulsive. Not realistically, that's the offensive version of obsessive compulsive, where I don't actually have that disorder. I'm just saying it in a modernized term. Because I hyperfixate. I read it in 3 days. And so I gave Sarah and Jess page numbers to push them forward to say something happens here. Look forward to something in 200 pages. Look forward to something on page 451. Look forward to something on page 263. And that prefaces what Sarah is about to say about her looking forward to something, which I was probably wrong about.
No, that was a lie every single time, just so you're aware. The page numbers were a lie. No, I said on page 153, I said, wait, is what happened to Marvallo supposed to be a compelling mystery? Because we didn't quite get the answer to it, and it kept hinting at it for way too long.
I assumed Marvallo wasn't dead the moment that they had him disappear in the smoke.
Yeah. Anyone who died
after we threw a rock at the dragon and it didn't hit him.
Yeah.
So I automatically assumed the dragon did nothing. And if the dragon does nothing, then the dragon eating Marvallo does nothing. And our stupid protagonist just didn't stupid enough.
At least he was sheltered.
But the thing is, it didn't matter anyway. But the thing is, we're not retarded.
Yeah.
Like, as readers, it's treating
you need
us
the main
like
character to at
we're
least ask
stupid.
questions. They can get dumb
Yes!
answers that appease them, but make the reader continue to question.
I hate so much that Marvolo was after him the entire time. Ragoth didn't realize it the entire time, and it still didn't matter.
Yeah.
Marvolo should have caught up to him.
I know!
Not just because the centaur said, no, we should go this way to help throw off the path. Like, he is the second in command, apparently, in terms of Ragoth, to the king. And he's still so incompetent, and that hurts.
Look, I'm going to say it, okay. Black Crown was my least favorite book of all of them.
This is going off the rails. This is disintegrating.
I don't think I said that, but I don't think I said that before, did I?
You did say that before.
I only gave my
You gave your least favorite.
I did say that before.
Because Jack felt very justified that someone ranked it last, because she felt in her heart of hearts that it should have been ranked last, but couldn't quite give it that.
Right.
Yes.
It was my least favorite because it made me remember the reason why I stopped fucking reading fantasy. That's the reason.
And honestly
it's personal.
That's a good reason. That's departing from everything we've said about all of these books individually. That is true. Where if you go into adult fantasy, the gap between young adult fantasy and adult fantasy is monumental. Where in young adult fantasy, you have people making mistakes and going into these huge political issues, usually, but world-bending issues where they have to be at the center of it and figure out who they are in it and figure out the magic at the same time. And then you jump into adult, and it's 50 pages of world building and explanation and genealogy and politics before you even get into the story, before you care about anyone. And there's so little, and I will say so little as a modern setting, as a in the last 10 years term, there's so little in between. Because if you go back farther than that, then there's not really any in between. Where it makes you not want to read because everything you loved about fantasy is suddenly just serious and just like, if you want any sort of romance in it, any sort of personalization, it hops, skips, and jumps over into erotica. Like there's nothing that has that pretty look, I'm discovering magic while also being important whimsy. And whimsy's not exactly the right term for YA, but that's the closest we're going to get right now. Whimsy of YA in adult. It's so difficult to find, and it's so disheartening if fantasy is what you love. And that's why the majority of people who buy and read YA fantasy are 30-year-old women. Because what they want is not found in adult fantasy.
Yeah. Well, and this isn't what turned me off of adult fantasy when I was in my teen years trying to find something new to read. This would have turned me off. Back then, it was the fact that magic systems were built around sex.
Was your first adult fantasy like Kushiel's Dart or something?
No, it was something about something and the gods or something. I don't know. Basically, the humors were used as the magical thing, but it, of course, turned upon ejaculation as the primary.
I've heard good things about Kushiel's Dart, so I haven't read it.
I haven't read, so I don't know. But if this is the world building that is expected in fantasy, in adult fantasy,
okay, we'll never read Wizard's First Rule because that's garbage, and the sex is really bad in that. The inclusion is just should not have been included.
Well, the thing is, it's not even that. It's not even just. It was the fixation on it. It was the nothing else matters other than this thing. It feels immature, actually. So it's like you almost get to a point where you're like, this is less mature than I am as a 17-year-old, which is embarrassing, to be quite honest. Like, and this that's one of the things that was most offensive about The Black Crown. It's more immature than something I would have written as a 16-year-old. And yet it's so damn proud of itself. And that's what I just didn't like about it. And also, on page 169, I had marked that there were 6 uses of emblazoned by that point, and I was counting them because emblazoned was used so fucking many times. And I just want to throw that out there. I hated it. And also, mini rant. My little brother literally does have a meltdown over this every 4 weeks or so. He texts me and says, I still remember that book.
To be clear, if I don't like a book, it doesn't hit my bookshelf. I sell it immediately. I don't even care if they throw it away. I just take it to some sort of used bookstore and I get rid of it because the thought of having it on my shelf makes me sad. And so that has happened to every book that we've read thus far.
Has it?
I do not have any of these to check the page numbers anymore.
I have all of them, and I feel like it would be great to take them in with my notes.
I almost want to do like a bonfire, but also that feels like sacrilegious. Like, I don't want to burn books.
I want to burn books. Sometimes burning books is literally earned.
The only book that I've burned is my own.
Is that cathartic?
Literally earned. Literally?
No, literally, yeah. So whenever I write, I erase everything. And whenever I print...
She does. It's
for my
disgusting.
writing groups, I print out chapters. And I get their feedback, which is usually not feedback. It's usually nothing, honestly. And so I take all of those pages that I printed out and all of the notes that I wrote down and whatever else, and I burn it.
Jack.
And it's really lovely.
Did you want to go on record as saying that usually your writing group gives you nothing?
Yes. I also tell that to my writing group.
That's fair.
I'm a very honest person.
All right.
That's fair. That's true. And actually, that's the reason why you
give me nothing.
That's why you get obsessive freaks after you.
It's to the point that my writing group current, because I do change writing groups every time I move, looks at me and says, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. This was all good. And I expect that from them, but I appreciate the apology.
All right, guys.
Point being, I burn my own words. And I feel that it honestly is really cathartic because those are pieces of my book that I'm finished with, that I'm not tied to anymore, that I'm never going to publish and I'm never going to use. And for those of you who don't know, which I assume is everyone up to this point, I erase everything. Like whenever I decide that I'm not going to write, like I don't like this chapter, I just erase it. I don't keep an extra copy, like some people, looking at everyone, basically, but especially Sarah. I don't keep any extra copies. I don't keep any extra digital files. I don't keep any USBs or Google files or whatever. I just erase it, and then I rewrite it. And if I really liked a line or I really liked a concept, I'm going to write it again. And so I burn any evidence that I wrote something else. And it is lovely. Thank you. Have some chocolate, have some wine, burn your work.
I've seen
you guys
your
want
folder.
to know what I do?
Keep 1,000,000 billion copies. Always.
Okay.
What do you all do?
It's
I disapprove, but what do you do?
I actually have opened my very first draft of what would eventually become the book I'm working on right now. Because I kept it.
I want it sent
so
to
it's
me.
not finished. I wrote it for my very first National Novel Writing Month, in which I wrote 2 short stories and then 61,000 words of this. It's very different. I read most of page 1. And I was like, this is better than a lot of what we read this month, or this season, but also it's bad. I'm not going to read this entire page. It's gross. Why is this fight going on so long? I started with a fight and it went on too long.
The fact that whatever you wrote when you were 16 is better than whatever we've read this season that got acclaims should be wonderfully gratifying for you and should be very encouraging to what you can do as an author.
Or it should be sad. But anyway, I think this has been the season wrap up. Honestly, I think from our general standpoint is we were disappointed. I will say the first chapters were not disappointing. We got a lot of fairly decent first chapters, and I think we were able to give some good feedback on those.
They were certainly less disappointing than the indie books that we read.
Bottom line, we hate There Will Be Thousands. We hate the other books, but less. And Sarah alone likes The Arsonist.
I hate The Arsonist more than There Will Be Thousands.
Line,
the end.
Thank you for joining us for this season's wrap up. We do
crazy,
apologize for any of the drunken things we've said. And we do hope you'll
I don't
meet us
apologize
for season 2. I'm just going to keep going forward despite the many
You will
protestations.
meet us for season 2 because we have given so much good feedback and so much
Send in your
good
drafts.
intel that you have gotten better if you actually listen to us and you actually start analyzing books the way that we have.
All right, as Jack says,
You're
you will
welcome.
meet us for season 2. So we will see
send
you
in
in
like
season
book recommendations
2.
for
Now,
us to
fuck
read.
off.
Why not?
Thank you for listening. If you have anything that you would like to submit to any of our segments, then we would love to hear from you. We promise to only drink. If we are in our season wrap-up, and otherwise we will take your work very seriously. Even if we don't like it, we will treat it as a piece of work with an artist who wants to get better, and we will try and help you on that journey, and that's what's important here.
AKA, fuck off.
Finger guns.
AKA, do not listen to either of them, actually. I hope that Sarah only keeps my voiceover in because neither of them are trustworthy
Finger
at
guns
this
are
point
funny.
in their drinking.
I am in complete control.
Correct. With Jess not drinking basically anything, she's not trustworthy. So keeping only my voice in here. Thank you for listening to
Send
season
in your
1.
drafts.
We appreciate all of you. And we're looking forward to all of you sending in your work for next time.
Okay.
We will
bye.
actually take it seriously, we promise. We love you. Bye.
I'm going to stop recording now.
Bye, guys.
If I can find the thing. Sort of still recording. I think we're past done. We're just still going.
Yeah. We're probably done.
talking.
None of this should make it into the final cut. This is bad.
I don't know.
She'll clip out some funny things to go over
That's
the
not
credits.
good. I don't trust her. I don't trust Sarah.
I think she should start the credits with me saying that she'll clip out some funny parts to put over the credits.
I'm quite
I
discretionary.
lied. You can get drunk on a bottle of wine.
Oh boy.
Of course you can.
I'm behind. I'm not even tipsy. What are you guys
I'm
doing?
using Mike's lights or whatever the shit.
I don't like
Ryan just brought me
wine,
a
so I don't
shot,
drink it
so
very
I could
much.
catch up.